Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome into the Daily Insider, the Vegas Insider YouTube channel. I am Tom, and today we are going to be going over a pretty big event. We have a special guest, our UFC, MMA, combat sports betting expert, Adam Lykkesteen. Did I pronounce that right, Adam? Let me know. Is that how you
You
pronounce
did a
your
good
name? How are you
you
doing?
did a good job. I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me, Tom.
How ready are you for this weekend?
I'd say I'm close to as ready as you can possibly be. I see some good betting lines, a lot of fights that are close to being pick'em, so some good spots to potentially pick off some good betting value. So I think this is a good card filled with lots of opportunities for betting.
Which fight are you most looking forward to? Is it the main event? Is it the co-main event? I know Tony Ferguson is fighting. He's a pretty big name.
Yeah.
Which fight stands out to you as the most intriguing? Maybe not from a betting standpoint, but just from being a fan of the sport.
I think I gotta go with the main event for a couple of reasons. First of all, because I think this fight sort of marks that the Khabib era has sort of ended. The division is moving on. We got two new hungry contenders here, of course, Michael Chandler coming from Bellator and Olivieri, who sort of has been like a journeyman in the UFC for the majority of his career, and now he's sort of hit this stride where we see him going on this lengthy win streak. So I think the main event for me is just like really gonna be a fight that I'm looking forward to. Obviously, you mentioned the Ferguson fight, but he's coming on that into this fight on that two fight skid. So yeah, we'll have to see how that one goes. But for me, it's definitely the main event.
Let's go through the main card real quick. Let's go through the 5 matches that are currently scheduled, beginning with Rodrigo Bonatorin and Matt Schnell. Schnell is the current favorite. He has odds around the minus 150 territory right now. Is he a favorite you think should win this fight? I see he's won 1, 2, 3. I see he's won 4 of his last 5 fights, while Bonatorin, I believe, is on a 2-fight losing streak. So what are your thoughts on this match?
For me, this is a fight between two guys where they sort of are still in the stage of their career where they sort of need to get their name out there, throw their name in the mix with a big name. So the winner of this fight will probably be able to get that fight. Maybe Bontorin will need a win more because, as you said, he's coming into this fight with 2 losses. But I mean, Schnell, yeah, he's right there chasing the top 10 of the division. But I mean, for me, this is actually a pretty even matchup. I analyzed this fight, and I don't really think there's much insight that really makes me lead toward one or the other. So I think for me, this is just like lean back and enjoy.
Stay away.
See how it plays out. This is probably a
Some,
fade
so,
for me.
They say sometimes the best bet to make is the one you don't make, the one you stay clear of.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's move up now to Shane Burgos and Edison Barbosa.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on this fight? I know both of these are 2 names that a lot of people are familiar with, even if they don't follow the sport as heavily
Mm.
as maybe some fans do. They're kind of known in the mainstream media a little bit. Shane Burgos minus 134 favorite. Barbosa is the underdog. Do you agree with those odds? What are your thoughts on this fight?
Definitely not. I mean, this is one of those fights where this is one of those rare occasions actually where I think the betting line should be flipped. We have Shane Burgos, who's like this big brawler type of guy who just comes forward and gets hit in the face like quite a lot. And I mean, he does manage to sometimes just overwhelm his opponents. But we have seen that when he faces that savvy vet who just knows how to deal with that and just like pick him apart, he doesn't really know what to do. And I think Edson Barbosa is actually one of the guys that are maybe able to do that to him. So for a betting standpoint, I think this is just value all over Barbosa, the veteran. Good leg kicks. I mean, just overall one of the most pure strikers I've seen in the UFC. So I think this is a good play if you're signing with Barbosa.
Now we have some females on the main card. We have Caitlin. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. You can correct me if you need to. Caitlin Chukgian taking on Viviane. Taking on Viviane Arahu. I probably botched that as well. So these two, I recognize Caitlin. I don't know much about Viviane. Can you maybe explain to people who might not be familiar with these two fighters, their style, who you like in this fight? I see Caitlin is the favorite. Notice I'm going by their first names. Notice how Caitlin is the favorite at -139. So do you agree with those odds? And just, again, for people who are unfamiliar with these two fighters, could you maybe break down their style a little bit?
Sure thing. So, I mean, Caitlin is a girl who's actually been in her division for quite some time. She actually managed to get a title shot against Shevchenko Valentina in the flyweight division. So she's kind of been up there, with the best. But I mean, it hasn't really gone her way against the best. She also faced Jessica Andrade, who was a former champion at strawweight, where she was quite badly finished with a body kick. But overall, Shukagian style, Caitlin is her style is just like a point fighter, just like pick you apart with volume and take you to the scorecards. And she just prays that her or hopes that her technique will carry her to get the win to on the scorecards. Looking at Arajo, who's the underdog, she's more of like a well-rounded fighter. Good boxing, good movement, but she does have that ground game as well. Actually, I would say that both girls in this matchup are pretty well-rounded, but Arajo is definitely the more comfortable taking the fight to the ground. So if we kind of take that information and look at the odds, I think this is also one of those fights where you could make the point that it should at least be a pick 'em fight, or the plays Arajo, because we have Chukagian, who is more of a point fighter, and I think we have Arajo, who is more coming forward, more putting on the pressure. And I think that kind of leads the judges to maybe see this in her favor if the fight hits the scorecards. So I think the pressure of Arajo and just like the determination essentially would make her a good bet in this situation against Chukagian.
Yeah, and kind of alluding to what you said about Caitlin, you really taking it the distance, trying to win on the scorecards. She has won her last 4 fights that have gone the distance. She's won. Her last fight that went the distance and she lost was December 2018 against Jessica I believe that's her name. And it's interesting because the last 2 fights in which Caitlin saw a finished result, she lost. And the last fight was actually to a Brazilian who she will be fighting on Saturday. So some interesting trends there. Let's move to the co-main event now. We have, I'll let you know, Tony Ferguson. I've got that down. Why don't you say the next name and tell us about this fight a little bit?
So Ferguson is fighting Beneil Dariush, who is Dariush, yeah, quite a name there. He's also a veteran in the UFC, but is coming into this fight, I believe, on 5 consecutive wins. So a lot of wind in his sails. He just beat Diego Ferreira, who is a top 10 guy who actually just fought this weekend. So quite some momentum behind him there. And then, of course, we have Ferguson coming off those 2 devastating losses, of course, to Gaethje by KO, and Olivieri just completely dominated him for 3 rounds. So for me, this is Dariush or nothing really.
Okay.
I just think that Ferguson, statistically, if we dive into the statistics, I think there's a point where, the dominant fighter just kind of goes out of his prime physically. And I think that Ferguson is a guy who has been on that long win streak, and now it's come to an end. And I think mentally he has to come to terms with that. And I just think this is a fight where, skill-wise, Dariush is an extremely well-rounded fighter. Good grappling. He can hang with him on the feet. I think Ferguson needs to finish here if he wants to win.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because as I'm looking through their recent results between Dariush and Ferguson, see, I can pronounce his name. I'm a quick learner. So I noticed that there's of each fighter's last 5 fights, 4 have failed to go the distance. So I'm wondering, do you see this fight ending before the final bell?
That's a tough question. I think Ferguson always with his style and his ferocity and just like his presence in the cage, he always tries to go for that finish. Dariush, on the other hand, I think that there is an effect where when you're standing across from Ferguson, you kind of like want to, at least in the first round, like kind of stay away and maybe survive for the first round, and then after going into the second round, you're like mentally like, okay, I can deal with this guy, and his pressure. And statistically, if the finish doesn't come in the first round, then there's a pretty high likelihood that it goes to the final scorecards. But I mean, Dariush, I'm not sure I see a way in which he knocks him out on feet. I'm not sure I see a scenario where Dariush gets the finish, because I mean, Ferguson has that chin.
So you think Ferguson either wins it in round one or it goes the distance?
Yeah, that's
okay.
kind of. I mean, you said it for me. I think that's kind of the narrative I'm trying to paint here. Yeah. So
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know that round total odds, they're not out yet. So we'll keep an eye on those and kind of see what other odds drop. Because right now we just have winning markets. But of course, as you know, there will be round totals. There will be, will the fight go the distance? Will it not? So yeah, definitely want to keep your eyes out for different markets as they drop as we get closer to Saturday's event. And we have the main event, which I know you said you were looking very much forward to. Charles Olivieri versus Michael Chandler. What are your thoughts on this? I see Olivieri has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's won 8 in a row. Of those 8, 7 he's won with a finished, whether it be submission or a knockout. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this match? What are your thoughts on Chandler? Because I know a lot of people aren't too familiar with Michael Chandler. So what is your take on both fighters and the odds that have been given?
I think the odds are kind of what I expected, to be honest, because we've always seen that disrespect. I don't want to say disrespect, but kind of disrespect for the fighters from like crossing over from Bellator or, Ryzen. We got a little bit with Yuri Prochazka, who had his debut against Volkan Oezdemir. These fighters are just coming from other organizations than the UFC, because there's this narrative that UFC is just like the best. And I kind of agree with that, but still, I mean, you got to take a guy like Chandler, who's conquered like the title in Bellator, beaten Eddie Alvarez in his prime. Alvarez was a champion at one point in the UFC. So I think you can't really play with the narrative here, or you can't really think that Olivieri is just going to go in there and like steamroll him, because I think level-wise, these guys are pretty similar. I mean, this could go either way. So for that reason, I think the betting value is definitely on Chandler. I mean, he's still the dogs, despite I think the money's coming in on him pretty heavily. But I think he's the play here. I really do. He's got the wrestling. I mean, people are saying that Olivieri is just going to submit him if Chandler takes him down, but I think we see from time to time that the good wrestlers just like completely toss around the jiu-jitsu guys, and the jiu-jitsu guy just isn't able to get a hold of the wrestler at all. So I think we could end up seeing that this Saturday.
Okay. And again, there will be more markets that do drop. Do you see the match ending before the final bell? It's 5 rounds, so there's more time to play with in terms of ending the fight. Or do you think that they will indeed go the distance?
100% this fight ends inside the distance. Very high likelihood. Yeah, very high likelihood.
Yeah, I mean, I see Olivieri is a finish machine, it looks like.
Yeah, and he has that submission, and I mean, of course, Chandler is gonna be in trouble if he takes this to the ground. He has to be really like on his toes and careful, because we saw with Kevin Lee, who's another great wrestler, that every time he took Olivieri to the ground, he's just so active and shooting for submissions that you can't really like pin him and get off some control time. So it's really difficult with Olivieri. He's so active from his guard. And at the same time, if we look against Olivieri, I think there has been a tendency where if the fight really doesn't go his way, that he kind of breaks, or I don't, respect the fighters obviously, but I mean, his last loss against Paul Felder, he just really wasn't able to. I mean, take Felder down and control him like I think he had envisioned in his mind, and he kind of just wilted under the pressure, and Felder got the TKO. So I think we might see that happening if Olivieri doesn't get him out of there in the first couple of rounds.
Yeah, we could see that out of Chandler, something mirroring or parallel to that. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of fights before the main card. We got the prelims. We're not going to go through all the prelim fights. That would be kind of insane, but there's some value out there, right? There's some bets that you like. What stands out to you out of the prelim fights in terms of good betting?
The one that I really have my eye on from the beginning is Lando Vanetta versus Mike Grundy. I think Grundy is the -125 favorite at the minute, and Vanetta is +100. I just think this is completely insane odds. Vanetta is, I think he's had 10 UFC fights at this point, and he's won 3. And we're still he's still getting the support from the betting market because he had that close fight with Ferguson in his debut where he dropped him and stuff. And,
was that
and
4 or 5 years ago though, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. And he had those 2 fights with Bobby Green. The first one was a draw. The second one he was favored and he still lost.
He lost.
And I actually checked, if you've bet against Lando in every single one of his UFC fights, you've made a profit, quite a big profit actually. So
looking at his results, it's just he's lost 2 of his last 3. He's he's failed to win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of his last 8.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. This is just a point where you have to be honest and be like, okay, this guy is not UFC level, and I really think that Grundy is, despite this will only be his 3rd outing. I think he's shown great hands. He had a good fight with Evloev, who is undefeated, almost got the submission in that fight. So this is just a matter of Vanetta is not able to win at this level. So for that reason, you just have to fade him. And that's what I plan on doing.
Well, -124, that's pretty good value for
should be
for
way more wide. Yeah.
Maybe it will go up as the week goes on because it's still early. So get your bets out there now. I actually do see round totals right now for Olivieri versus Chandler on DraftKings. So I'll just ask you, you think it's going to finish before the final bell rings? Yeah. Do you have a round in mind? Because I'm looking at the round totals. I see over 2.5 at +115. So it seems like they think that this might end within the first 2 rounds. What are your thoughts on that?
Obviously, statistically, if there's a finish, it's in the first round. But I still feel that given what we saw from actually Dan Hooker in his approach against Michael Chandler, it really seemed like he knew that Chandler has that power and he just hits like a truck, and he was extremely timid almost. He was just circling around the whole time. I think we might see the same from Olivieri in the first round. And for that reason, I'm kind of seeing maybe second or third round, I'd probably say, because I do think it will go out of that first round.
And now, as we're talking, markets are dropping. I see to win by finish, Michael Chandler to win by finish +188. Do you take that?
I'd take that, definitely. I think that's good value. I mean, I also think kind of just the straight pick is valuable, just head-to-head Chandler. But the finish is the inside the distance. That's definitely also a value play.
Okay. I think that might be it. Is there one best bet from the prelims, from the main card? If you could only make one bet, it could be any fight, any market. What to you is the safest bet?
Okay, the best bet. This might actually surprise you because we didn't even talk about this one, but actually Andrea Lee versus Antonina Shevchenko. That is Valentina's sister. That fight will go the distance.
Why would that be? Why do you think that's the best bet?
Statistically, these fights in women's MMA tend to go the distance way more often than men's, and this is also in the lower weight classes of women's MMA. And these 2 girls are extremely used to going to the scorecards and have no problem using the ground game to just kind of take some time off the clock. So I think this is a fight that will go the distance 8 out of 10 times.
Great. Adam, thanks for coming on and talking UFC with us. And Adam, where can people find your UFC work? Can you give a plug about where people can find your betting analysts? I know you do a great job breaking down odds. You've already done it for 262. And where can people find your work?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter. Kind of just sharing some opinions and stuff there. But on Vegas Insider, obviously, you can find my betting analysis and my picks for the big fights and stuff like that. So you can check out my stuff there.
Great, Adam. Thanks so much for joining us, and looking forward to 263 in a month or two.
Thanks for having me, Thom.
And just wanted to remind you all to like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Really do whatever it is you have to do. But most importantly, get your wagers in for UFC 262 this weekend and make some money. Until then, I'm Thom. He's Adam. We'll see you.